Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to round 2 of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. We are live here from Sepang, Malaysia, and joining me, Sean Henshelwood. Sean, let's get straight to it. Round 1 yesterday, a fantastic performance from Alessio Picariello. Really, he's qualified in pole position. He's there again for race 2 today, but yesterday's race, what a show.
He was a real star. We did wonder whether or not the three-time champion, Alex Young, the local hero, would go back-to-back this year and make it 4 in a row, and how much pressure these young guys would actually apply to him. But yesterday we saw the final podium was one of the youngest ever in Cup history, so it looks like there could well be a changing of the guard, and it was a very good race.
That's right, and one of those other youngsters who crashed out towards the end, who didn't crash but had a problem towards the end of the race, Mitch Gilbert. So another young driver who you would expect to be in the mix for today's race. So that's 3-4 drivers and some of the others as well. This, this younger generation threatening the likes of Marchi, Frankie and Alex Young, of course, the reigning champion.
Well, we saw that last year, didn't we? Specifically with Alessio Picariello and 4-time winner last year, Martin Rump. They really applied pressure to the Malaysian driver, but he stood tall. It went all the way down to the last race, and really, it was a fantastic season ender.
Well, let's take a look at some of the highlights from the first race of the season. So the start, it was a rolling start for yesterday's race. It will be a standing start for round 2 today. But you can see the flashing lights, everyone using the push to pass. And it's a bit of a tactical thing. Do you use it? I guess if everyone else has to, you almost kind of have to cancel it out.
Well, if the road's blocked in front of you with another car, you can't really apply it. So you can then use it and come back and fire back into contention a little bit later on. But a very clean start. Alessio Picariello started brilliantly, protected his line. And you see the flashing light. That was Mitch Gilbert's car. That is suggesting that he is in that period of the extra 50 horsepower and under the push to pass. Only 12 opportunities for the pro drivers to use that during the opening race. The same thing for race 2 today. And it does come down to strategy. It is one of the new things. Another new thing, you'll see those yellow stickers on the front of the car. Pirelli tyres for the first time in Cup history this year. And some of those drivers were here a month ago for the Blancpain GT Series Asia. In fact, the man that was just on screen, Mitch Gilbert, won and placed 3rd in those 2 60-minute races, alongside Aditya Patel, another former Cup winner. And he really set a very high standard. So we expect a lot from Mitch Gilbert this time round.
Yeah, he was very much in the mix, and he starts in 3rd position for the race today. Had that problem, as we alluded to, towards the end of the race. But Alex Young, you'll see him with the big spin that he had towards the end of the race when he was threatening for a podium position. And this is it. He just loses it, and there's no way for him to control the car here.
No aero, no grip. He'd left the circuit. Was really pushing very, very hard to try and retain that 4th position under pressure from Audi Hong Kong, Sean Thong, who's on screen there. He moved up into position 4, and fortunately for him, he actually graduated to the podium because of the issues that were facing Mitchell Gilbert.
And really, towards the end, it was a very composed performance from Alessio because, of course, he built that lead. Then when the safety car came out, he lost that lead, and that was when the chance for the others to really attack him, to use that push to pass on the restarts. But he was comfortable all the way through in the first half, and then again after the safety car. Celebrated, as you'd expect, but he's looking very, very strong.
Well, the other thing he learnt last year, he said over the off-season, over the winter, I've been able to really focus on my fitness, been able to focus on being able to combat things like the pressure of other drivers, of being in a championship. I mean, last year, he won only 1 race, and that came all the way towards the end of the season in Taiwan. Yet, he only lost the championship by 1 point. And at various stages, he led the championship. Meanwhile, Martin Rump won 4 races, still finished 3rd in the championship. And then also, we went down to Alex Young, 3 race wins, and he won the championship by just a solitary point. But the point I'm making is that Alessio Picariello was smart enough to amass a lot of points. He knows he needs to be consistent, and he was really very, very good. So today, pole position again. He did that back-to-back yesterday. We have changed the qualifying system this year where the 2 15-minute sessions set the start grid for the 2 races. So Alessio got pole from Alex Young, the reigning champion. He will be looking for a recovery today. Then Mitch Gilbert, Martin Rump, Frankie Cheng, and Sean Thong. That is your first 3 rows.
So let's talk about 2 of those other drivers who made the podium yesterday. Again, they'll be looking to do the same. Martin Rump and Sean Thong. Impressive performances. Martin, of course, won 4 races last year, so obviously he'd expect to be very much in the mix. Sean has raced before, but he's a strong performance from him yesterday.
Oh yeah, the Audi Hong Kong driver, taken over the reins of the Audi Tita racing team entry. Of course, that was the livery of Alex Young over the last couple of seasons. He did a very good job, but did admit post-race that didn't quite have the car exactly to his liking. Of course, Alex Young is one of his teammates. The two of them drive for Phoenix Racing Asia. Of course, co-team principal Marchie Lee and KOU are also in that team. We're talking about data and sharing and knowledge and all that sort of thing. It was interesting to see most of those cars struggle just a little bit yesterday to find the right performance. So they will be looking to make amends for that across this second race today.
Now let's talk about some of the new innovations for the 2017 season of the Cup here. We've talked about the return of push to pass, but what are some of the other innovations that Audi have brought to the Cup here?
Well, of course, we're talking about Pirelli tyres. The push to pass is different this year because we have the display on the side of the car so that we as fans, commentators, and also some of the other drivers, if they get the right angle for the car in front of them, know what their rivals are doing. So that's part of the strategy. And in fact, talking yesterday to a couple of the drivers, they said they were talking about doing strategic moves and mathematics in their head whilst they were actually on the grid and racing because they wanted to know whether or not they could outdo their rivals or whether or not they had an advantage.
And that's going to be, it's a very different skill. You know, mentally you've got to be focused on something, a new thing that's coming in. Martin Rump mentioned it in the podium afterwards. But we can join Bernd Gers, who is the director of Audi Customer Sport Racing Asia. He's with Sophie on the grid now.
Bernd, welcome to the show. From race 1 yesterday, we see a very interesting phenomenon because 3 young drivers dominated the race so far. So what is your take on today's race?
Yeah, yesterday we saw really one of the youngest podiums in the 5 years history of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. So today it will be very exciting how the established drivers will react and try to combat this challenge.
And also we know that the Sepang International Circuit is always one of the most demanding circuits in our racing calendar. So what our viewers should watch out during the race today?
Yeah, they should watch out, especially the start of the race. We have a standing start today. We have kilograms additional weight in some of the cars, so there will be a lot of overtaking here on the starting line, so and before the first curve. So thank you so much. Good luck to all the drivers, and at home, enjoy the race.
Enjoy the race at the same time. Now let's just cross over to the boys upstairs.
Thank you, Sophie. And interesting what Bernd had to say. He's right. It could be a changing of the guard with the young drivers taking the fight to the established stars and, in fact, former champions of this Audi R8 LMS Cup. But certainly the standout yesterday, we've said it already, was Alessio Picariello. He really did a very good job. And interestingly, unlike many of his rivals in this field, he didn't do a lot of racing in the off-season. He focused on his fitness. He focused on being back on a grid somewhere. He wasn't convinced that he would be back in the Cup. That all happened very late in the piece, and he just focused on being the best he could. And look at the young man. He's certainly been a standout. Very popular in the garage with the team, the Absolute Racing team, but also very popular with the fans.
What I really noticed from talking to him before the race yesterday is that he's so much more happy and relaxed than he was at the end of last season when it was very, very tense, not just on the track, but kind of off the track. There was definitely some tension as that rivalry between Alessio and Alex towards the end of the season when they were so close at the end of the season. It really built up, and that, I think it was pretty tough for him. But he's just seemed to put that out of his mind, and he's very happy, and it's clearly helping his driving, isn't he? He's, it was a stellar performance yesterday.
Well, it was very interesting talking to both Martin Rump and Alessio yesterday. They said the one thing they bring into the championship this year is experience. They know what a season of the Cup is like. They know what to expect from the performance of the car, and they know a lot of their rivals. They know what they are going to have to face against the likes of Frankie, Marchie and Alex. So they are prepared, and they said that was the one thing that will help us get better this year. And between them, well, they finished second and third in the championship. If they're going to get better, it's going to be very interesting. Well, it looks like we may, in fact, have Alessio Picariello down on the grid with Sophie, and he can tell us just how this is going to work out for race 2 today.
And just like what Bernd said, the youngest driver who took the pole position from pole to wing and started from pole position again last year for the second time this race weekend. So with extra 50 kg in your car, what is your plan for this afternoon?
The plan is to win. I mean, we are on pole position, so it's the best place to start. Obviously, we have 50 kilos, but I'm quite confident because the car was really good yesterday, so there is no reason it's worse today.
Good luck for you, and see you on the finishing line. And back to our panel.
Well, he's a confident man, isn't he? I mean, of course, he always expects to win. You ask probably 6 or 7 of them on the grid, they'll tell you they're going to win every race. But he's in the right position to do that. Obviously, he starts in P1.
Well, I mean, we were just talking about it. He has a new air about him this year. He has a confidence. It wasn't he wasn't confident last year, but how could you come into a field like this and say, I'm going to win, I'm going to beat these guys? Yes, you believe that, but now he has the runs on the board. He did it in qualifying twice yesterday and in the opening race, could well do it again today. So why couldn't he say, I'm going to win this? So a very good job. So we'll take a good look at this circuit, Mark. It's, of course, built in 1999, a typical Herman Tilke design. We say typical because he has designed a lot of the modern F1 circuits. Host of the Formula One Grand Prix here since then. Sadly, it will host its last one in October this year, but long straights and some very testing, demanding, high-speed corners, and that's where the amateurs will tend to drop just a little bit off the pace of the pros, and we'll see a little bit of that as this second race unfolds here today.
Well, those 2 long straights at the beginning and end of each circuit, obviously a big feature of this track. But Sean, I know you have to rush off to the commentary booth, so I'll let you go now, but we can throw it now down to the commentators for today's race.
Good afternoon and hello to wherever you are watching around the world on the internet. It is a beautiful day here in Sepang. You can see the heat haze in the background. There's a little bit of cloud cover. It's about 47 degrees from the track. Yesterday there was a high of 52.5, so it's slightly cooler today, but it's not going to be that frigid in those Audi R8 cars. Welcome to the much loved Asian series. This is the Audi R8 LMS Cup. We'll be going now. This is the 6th season. Each year it gets bigger and better, and again they just innovate, and we have the push to pass back, which proved to be so successful yesterday. There's so much intrigue with all those LED flashing lights telling you how many push to passes the drivers had. So they're clearing the track. Hopefully very soon they'll be going on the formation lap, and we've just got to wait a minute or so, and it's all about the Belgian Alessio. There's Mitch Gilbert. He was unlucky yesterday. The crankshaft went in the back of his car, so sadly he had to retire, but he was having some really good race times, lap times, so watch out for him. And he has a bit of a tactical decision to make, because he will be behind Alessio on the grid. Now Alessio's got that extra 50 kgs, so right behind Alessio on the inside of the grid you've got Mitch Gilbert, Frankie Chen and Mark Chile. These guys will try and duck in, as you see head on. They may try and duck into the middle of the track to try and overtake Alessio, who has that extra weight, and it's a real big problem, especially from a standing start. You've got all that lost momentum with the handicap of the extra weight. Also, Alex Young's on the outside in his Audi car, and right behind him, well, there is of course Martin Rupp. He has the extra 35 kgs for finishing second yesterday, and Sean Tong, who has the 20 kgs. So Akash Nandi, who lies down in P8, he may try and go into the middle as well to try and get past those 2 guys in front of him who have the excess weight. There is Alessio. Is there no stopping this man? He won yesterday. He's got 2 poles, and yesterday he had the Pirelli best lap as well. So at the moment everything is all about the Belgian. There's the former champion Alex Young, 3 times. He did the 3-peat last year, and it'll be an unprecedented 4th attempt and victory of the Audi R8 LMS Cup if he can win the next, or win some of the next 9 races over the 5 events for 2017. So they set off. As you can see, there's 12 on all the side of the cars. The pros have red lights, LED. The amateurs have green lights for their LED. So that's how you distinguish as well between the pro drivers and the amateurs. And this is one of these iconic tracks around the world, the Sepang International Circuit. First time we raced here was 2013. They actually did renovate the track about a year and a half ago. So for some of these drivers, it's a new course for them, especially that turn 2. They've changed the dip, and they'll be going down into turn 3, and this 5.5 kilometre track, 15 turns, and they've got those famous corners. One of the famous ones here is turn 4. That's Langkawi curve. That's flat out through T5 and T6 to Genting. Then it's turn 7, 8 KI curve, the sharp turn at turn 9, that's Berejai Tiedemann corner, flat out all the way through to turn 14, which is Sunway Lagoon. Then they have those 2 long straights separated by the final turn. So at the moment, the way it stands, Alessio is on 27 points, Martin Rupp's on 18, Sean Tong 15, Frankie Chen 12, Mark Chi Lee is on 10 points as they just start weaving their way around. This is turn 9, that's Berejai Tiedemann corner, and they'll be once the lights go out, they'll be averaging about 250 kilometers per hour in these Audi R8 cars. Also, just to take a little bit of a note with Rick Yun, he had that come together with Jeffrey Lee, and the mechanics worked pretty hard. They repaired the drive shaft in Rick Yun's KCMG car. So, and Jeffrey Lee, when I talked to the mechanics, it was just cosmetic. The main problem with Jeffrey Lee yesterday was he got stuck in the gravel and they just couldn't get him out. So that's all that happened yesterday. Now they're coming down to turn 15. They're weaving around trying to get the temperature in those tyres. Yesterday we raced late afternoon, which meant obviously that it was a little bit cooler. Now we're in the height of high noon here in Malaysia, coming up to about 1 o'clock local time, so it's fairly hot as we get ready now for them to settle on to the grid. So, Sean, it's all about the Belgian.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? You'd have to go a long way past predicting someone other than Alessio Picariello to take this one out after what he did yesterday. And as you pointed out a number of times yesterday, the pole man quite often in the Cup goes on to take victory. So he's got it all ahead of him, but the man alongside him could be the one that we have to watch. He might be the one who hasn't read the script.
So just remember that Alessio has that extra 50 kgs on the inside, so just watch out for Mitch Gilbert, Frankie Chen and Mark Chi Lee. They are rows 2, 3 and 4. There you can see them, the black, the red and the gold car. Mitch Gilbert just nudged the accelerator a little bit, so luckily he stopped the car moving forward. So here we go, we're all set. We wait for the lights. And away we go now. Can Alessio get in front of Alex Young? They'll be pushing to pass all the way down this home straight. Rick Yun hasn't got off the grid as well. March Lee tries the inside, but it's now Alex Young. Frankie Chen's trying to find some trouble as Mitch Gilbert pushes him out, and around as well is also, that is Martin Rupp in the champion car. So they come down into turn number 2, and it is Young in the lead from Alessio Picariello. Then it's Mitch Gilbert, Frankie Chen. Looks like also that Martin Rupp's in the mix with Sean Tong.
That's exactly what Alex Young needed to do. He's onto the push to pass. Interestingly, the man behind him, Alessio Picariello, is not using it yet. He's keeping that in store. This strategy will play out. But then this battle that we saw yesterday too between Frankie Chung and Mark Chi Lee going on. Martin Rupp's in the mix. Frankie's shown great pace this weekend. It'd be nice to see him too back on the podium this weekend. It
looks like Rick Yun has got away. We've got our tracking system, and he's currently going through turn 3. So Rick Yun has started, but Jeffrey Lee is in 3rd place. A couple of them going wide there.
Very wide, Picariello just running off the exit there, so he needs to be careful. There's a bit of runoff there as the Audi management team keep a close eye on what is going on. Frankie Cheng there in 4th place. Lights being flashed by Mitch Gilbert. Probably a bit early for that, Mitch. Let's just see how this race plays out. But nice start for Alex Young. This is a recovery he needed after yesterday. He's very experienced, 56 starts, 57 as of yesterday in the Cup. He knows that he's got plenty of time in this race to do what he needs to do, and that he can recover from something like that. It worked very well off the circuit. That looked like the champion racing team entry of Martin Rump.
Now what is quite noticeable so far in his first lap, as we see that's Alex Young, the 3-time champion. The guys with excess weight, they've dropped their position, so Alessio's gone down 1, and Martin Rupp and Sean Tong, they've dropped as well. So it really does show these cars, once they get handicapped with heavy weight, the cars are all similar, so weight does make a difference for these drivers. As Mark Chi Lee tries to duck down on the inside of Martin Rupp, so Martin is trying to use those pushes to passes. Mark Chi Lee's got 0 kgs, but Martin Rupp's got 35 extra. Can Mark Chi Lee just go? You can see the lights blinking there with Martin Rupp. Here comes Mark Chi Lee. He's going to step out. Is he going to overtake him?
It looks like he's going to try, but around the outside here with this tight turn 1-2 contact. Oh, a little bit of contact. Marchie's using muscle too. He wants to stay on the outside for the crossover, but Martin Rupp's done this before. He's seen it unfold in front of him. He knows he's got the position. If he can just keep Marchie out wide, that's exactly what he's done. little bit of oversteer. They're getting very hard on the throttle here too, and they need to be a little bit mindful too of tyre conservation. Martin Rump's gone for the push to pass to break away a little bit now from Marchie Lee, but Marchie may well have his in reserve. Sean Thong back a little bit further than we expected. He's dropped a couple of spots off the start, now shown in position 8. Of course, the Audi Hong Kong driver now driving for the Audi Tita Racing Team, finished on the podium in 3rd place yesterday. As you say too rightly, he's got that extra weight to contend with as well.
So let's just give you a rundown with 12 to go. It's Young in the lead from Picarello. Picarello's about half a second behind. That's Mitch Gilbert. Frankie's 4th. Martin Rump's dropped down to 5th. March Lee 6th with Stefan Rakelvi in 7th. Sean Song with that excess weight's gone down to 8th. KOU's up to 9th. Akash Nandi's in 10th. Jeffrey Lee 11th. And Rick Hyun is going somewhere around the track. He's currently around turn 5.
It's interesting, Alessio Picarello's forged up onto the tail there of Alex Young. Alex Young, a 2:06.2 last time round. That's not bad, but we've seen 2:02s, 2:03s in the early stages of race 1 yesterday. As you say, weather conditions were a little bit cooler too, but he's really managed to just drag that number 15 MGT car by absolute up onto the tail of the number 1 Audi R8 LMS Cup car of reigning champion Alex Young, and he's just waiting. He'll be biding his time to see what he needs to do. We saw these guys clash a number of times last year, so we'll wonder whether or not that will actually play into their psyche this time round. Fastest first sector that time round for Alessio Picarello, but you can see that gap close up as now Mitch Gilbert looks like he's starting to come into this equation.
Now, what was interesting with Alessio yesterday, he actually said his car was balanced so well and was going so good that he didn't actually need to use those push passes, but you can see that light flashing on the side of the car. That shows that extra 50 kgs, he needs that extra horsepower to try and keep up or even try and get around Alex Young, and he just seems to overcook it on the brakes there. Now you can see that Young has got 7 push to passes, Alessio's got 9, so it looks like he's actually used 1 there, so he could be down to 8. So it's going to be quite interesting. They're going to use these push to passes so quickly, you could end up with both of them using them halfway through, and then the rest of the Mitch Gilbert and Frankie Chen could get a lot closer.
Exactly, that's what's going to be interesting for us to watch. A great innovation from the Cup this year to put those numbers on the side of the car. Of course, we've only had 1 season from the 5 so far where we didn't have push to pass, and that was last year. But prior to that, we had no idea how many they had left. The other drivers had no idea. Now, there's every chance they can see the car in front of them as to how many that car has left and how they can use theirs to better work into the equation as this race goes on. 2:02.8 last time round for Alessio, so he's really pushing, but you can see that he's visibly closing. Very impressed with the performance of Frankie Cheng in the Absolute Racing entry back there in position number 4, and Martin Rump shown in position number 5. Marchie Lee too, a good run for him. Didn't have such a sterling run yesterday. Admitted that he's got a lot of pressure on his plate this weekend, running 4 cars in the Phoenix Racing Asia operation as the co-team principal. But he wanted to get back to just racing. He said, Sean, I've got too much on my mind. I just want to go out there and focus on being a racing driver, just as I have for the bulk of my career.
Now it looks like Rick Hyun has not completed the laps, so it looks like Jeffrey Lee's going to have a nice easy Sunday drive in the amateur class. So let's just focus now on the top 10 there. The pros as they come down into turn 15. Alessio is cutting that difference. He was half a second behind Alex Young. He's now about 0.18, so as they go across the line in after the next corner, we'll just see, and there you can see Marchie Lee just sizing up Martin Rump. Of course, Martin Lee knows he can take Martin Rump quite easily due to that excess weight. So they go across the line. Young's about 0.3 of a second in front of Alessio. Then it's Mitch Gilbert, Frankie Chen, Martin Rump, Marchie Lee. Stefan Rakelmi goes across in the Castro, but he's been overtaken now by Sean Thong. Then it's Stefan's in 8th, then it's Akash Nandi's up to 9th, KOU's in 10th, and Jeffrey Lee is just watching it all from the cheap seats.
Oh, a little bit of contact there, and he's turned him around. He's gone in too deep, KOU, and just tapped into the back of Akash Nandi. And that's disappointment for the young local driver. He's one of the guys we picked as potentially a race winner this year, but he's not had a great weekend. Like many of his younger rivals, or the other guys that have come into the championship, the rookies in this series, and guys like Martin Rump and Alessio Picarello, he has spent a lot of time in open wheelers. So he has come from that background, but we've seen these young guys progress to GT cars. Mitch Gilbert's another, and they've managed to press on and really impress behind the wheel of a 600 odd horsepower GT3 spec car.
So 3 laps in, 10 to go, and it looks like it's the old battle from 2016's reignited here between Alex Young and Alessio Piccarello. Now remember, if you first time you're watching here in 2017, Alessio only lost the title by 1 point, and these two guys, they are true competitors. They both want to win this title. Of course, Alex will be unprecedentedly winning it for the 4th time. Alessio wants his first crown, so these two guys throughout the season, they're going to go for it hammer and tongs.
Alex knew very well what it felt like to lose a championship by 1 point. You were there, Macau in 2013. He only needed 1 point in the final race of the year, stuck the car in the fence in dramatic fashion going through Mandarin Bend in qualifying, couldn't complete the race, had to sit in the commentary position and actually talk the race through and watch his championship lead disappear. He could have already been a 4-time champion. He knows how to do this. We've had 56 race starts. He's won 21 of them. That's better than 1 in 3. He is a very, very seriously good competitor in the Cup. So Stefan Riquelme on screen, subbing for Will Stevens, another ex-Formula 1 driver. We expect to see him in the car for the next event at Suzuka in June.
Just to show you how talented Alessio is, Alessio has the extra 50 kgs in his car, and he's still recording the best time so far in this race. He's recording a 2:02.8 compared to everyone else is doing a 2:03, and that's including that extra 50 kgs in the car. That's pretty special.
It is pretty special, and that comes down to, I think, in a lot of cases, we have 4 service teams here this weekend. Absolute Racing's been here from the start. It's maybe no surprise that Alessio Piccarello and Mitch Gilbert, who qualified 1 and 2 in that first race, drive for Absolute Racing. Phoenix Racing Asia, the man on screen, he won on their debut year. Alex Young, also Marchi Lee, Sean Thong and KOU are part of that team. Then we have the KCMG operation, and the last one that we have involved in the championship this year is Team WRT, and they have brought their experience over too from Europe. But you'd have to say that Absolute know these circuits, they know these cars very, very well, and that has been one of the advantages that Alessio Piccarello has used to his advantage. And you said just earlier, talking to him yesterday, he said the car was so well set up, he was able to just drive away from the field, and we even surmised after that safety car that perhaps he wouldn't be able to do it again and replicate the position that he took from the start and just disappear into the distance. And as you say, 50 kilos, and he's still right on this pace and all over the back of Alex Young.
And then you can see Frankie Chen from China. One of the beautiful things about the Audi R8 LMS Cup is we are pan-Asian and also international. We've got 8 nationalities, territories represented in this weekend as they come down into this final turn, and it's still Alex Young. He was about 0.4 a second in front of Alessio. They're just like bedding themselves down now. They're just getting into a little bit of a rhythm until the final couple of laps, as now we see Mitch Gilbert just having a quick look at Alessio. Mitch Gilbert, he was posting some really good lap times until the crankshaft went in his car, so there'll be no surprise if he gets into the podium and retains that 3rd place, or even manages to get past Alessio if he can gamble a bit with his pushes or passes, and Alessio can just open the door for him. As you can see, Alessio's only used 8. Maybe we can see how many Mitch has used as he goes through turns number 2. That looks like he's on about 9, although I've got bad eyesight. So let's just check. With Young in the lead, he's now 0.6 from Alessio. Mitch Gilbert, Frank is in 4th, Martin Rumley, so no change until you get down to P10, where Akash Nandi has retaken and overtaken Jeffrey Lee.
We just have a quick rundown on exactly what push to pass is. You can see that highlighted number 8 behind his behind the door there. The highlight number will tell you how many push to pass you have left. What push to pass is a new throttle body on these cars that are fitted specifically for the Audi R8 LMS Cup. There's some management, some electronic management that is involved in all of this too. The cars effectively run around 585 to 600 horsepower. They take 50 horsepower or thereabouts, it's identical on all the cars, out of that. When they hit the button, 10 seconds of additional power. What it does, it doesn't give you any more power, it just takes you back to the ability to run full open at 585 or 600 horsepower. They're all identical, they all have that opportunity. Now there are some changes. The Pro class, the AM Plus class, which Jeffrey Lee is currently leading, and Rick Yoon was in the amateur class, they have a different number of push to pass to use. The Pros only get 12 in both of the races, 12 for race 1, 12 for race 2. The AM Plus drivers get 24, that's double the amount. The AM driver, Rick Yoon, had 36 opportunities for 10 seconds of extra 50 horsepower, and he used it pretty well yesterday to actually work himself in amongst the Pros at the end of that opening race. So that's just a little bit of background of the technical nature of what we do. It just makes it more more interesting. And as Graham was alluding to, you see those numbers, the other drivers see those numbers. There's only 5 left now for race leader Alex Young. They can say, right, I'm going to conserve to the end of this race. Tyre wear might be a bit of an issue, fatigue might be a bit of an issue, and then I'll use those push to passes to range up on the back of this other car and make an overtaking opportunity. So all is not lost yet. They might be starting to just spread out a little bit, but the idea is that this is a race all the way to the finish.
So Alex has just taken a little bit more out of Alessio. Alex is now 1.1 in the lead. As I say, no change yet after this 6th lap. We've got 7 to go at half distance. Martin Rump, if you see him next time, he only had 4 left, so he's been really working that push to pass button pretty hard with the excess weight he's got. And he's got Marci Lee now sizing him up as they come over this brow going into Genting, turns 5 and 6. And you can see there, that is Mitch Gilbert. He's got about 7 left, so he's going to just bide his time and just wait for Alessio to come to him. Frankie Chen's having a good race as well, as we wait to see where Martin Rump and Marci Lee. I think that's going to be the next overtaking manoeuvre. Marci Lee knows Martin Rump's got the extra 35 kgs, so he's just there for the taking, and they're coming now into Berger Tinneman.
Still very impressed with the pace of Alex Young. We shouldn't be surprised, as we say, he's the winningest driver in the Audi Cup. Twice as many wins as the next driver in the field, which is Marci Lee. He's won on 10 occasions in his 58 starts in the Cup. But he seems to be getting away now from Picarello. It could be 2, tyre conservation and tyre management. They have 3 sets of brand new Pirelli slick tyres. DHC compound, slightly harder compound, to get through the whole weekend. From opening practice, they have to contest 2 practices, 2 qualifyings and 2 30-minute races on those 3 sets of tyres, and how they manage those tyres is up to each individual and each individual team. They can't do anything specifically with the tyres, but they might choose to use just 1 set for all of practice and qualifying and have 2 brand new sets for the 2 races, or they may go for a qualifying position. As we said, you qualify on pole in the Cup, there's a fair chance you can go on to win, so let's use the new rubber to get a good qualifying position and hold the field at bay. It's all about strategy. Nobody really knows what the other team's doing. Some of the teammates obviously will, but this is part of making it very, very exciting. So we don't know who's got newer rubber and who has older rubber, and how they've managed then, on top of that, their tyre pressures, because that can allow the car to perform better at the start of the race or towards the end of the race. There's so many different variables. These cars are all identical. 5.2 litre, 585 horsepower, V10 rear-wheel drive. Of course, you buy one of these cars on the road, it's a Quattro invariably, but for GT3 level competition, and these are full specification GT3 cars, they are only rear-wheel drive. As Stefan Rakelmi, the reigning Le Mans LMP2 champion, has gone for the push to pass. You can see that number flashing, so he has ticked another one off. Has 6 still in the bag as the laps start to wind down. He's back now in position number 8, having fallen behind the man who placed 3rd yesterday, Audi Hong Kong's Sean Tong.
And right behind him is KOU. I think he only had 2 bullets left in his machine there. As you can see, there's Marci Lee still trying to keep the pressure on Martin Rump. And talking about KOU and Team Korea, you can come and support him in the Korean round on July the 15th and 16th. As Marci Lee's getting really close now to Martin Rump. As you can see, Martin's only got 3 bullets left in his machine, and I think Marci Lee's got the advantage. As we see them coming through turns 11 and 12. Surely Marci's just going to size him up for either an overtake manoeuvre down at turn 15 or slipstream him going down into the first turn.
Well, it's still the opportunity, isn't it? But as you say, there's only 1 bullet extra that Marci Lee, 2012 Cup champion, has in his arsenal. But he's a very experienced campaigner. The first year of the Cup, he was the standout. It wasn't Alex Young. Alex Young finished 3rd in the championship. Marci Lee won an unprecedented 5 races in that opening season. He really was the dominant entry in this field. In fact, overall, in the 60 races we've had, or 61 now, of the Cup, Marci Lee has been in the top 5 more than any other driver in the field, so consistently strong. But now, of course, he has a team to manage, not only in this series, Blancpain GT Series Asia, where he shares a car with, in fact, that very car, with Sean Dong, who's on the field behind him, as he has a bit of a look again as they head around one more time into turn 1. He also runs a TCR Asia Series with a pair, or in fact 3 Audi RS3 LMS TCR. He took Audi to their first ever victory in Zhuhai 2 weeks ago with Sean Dong's younger brother, Jasper Dong, the first victory for that car anywhere in the world. So Marchie has a lot on his plate now. He's not just a driver. He doesn't just get into the car and go. He has to think about all these things. He has to manage a team of people, a team of cars, freight all over Asia, and he's really starting to feel the pressure of that this weekend. So he will be looking for a nice result, and he'd be very happy with his performance to be on the tail of Martin Rump, who has been one of the big standouts in the last 2 seasons of the Cup.
This is the biggest battle on the track so far here between Martin Rump and Marchie Lee. Marchie Lee has more pushes to passes, has less weight as well in his car, and I think he's just trying to outpsych Martin Rump just to see if he can buckle and make an unforced error with this Estonian driver to make it a bit easier to overtake as they come down into turn 9. But Martin Rump's got 2 more bullets left in his machine here, and I think Marchie's also got 3 or 2, so this is pretty close on the push to passes. Of course, with these two fighting, that allows Frankie Chen in P4 just to have an easier ride. He's about 2 seconds in front of Martin Rump, and back to the front of the field, you've got Alex Young still pouring it on with Alessio Piccarello. But Martin Rump, he had a good day yesterday. He's a really good driver. If he gets pole, he normally wins his races as they go down into this long back straight. There you can see Alex Young from Piccarello, Mitch Gilbert, Frankie Chen. Now Marchie Lee, is he trying to do something different here? Is he going to try and come in a little bit deeper into this final turn 15?
Could too be cool air, as you know very well, all these years with the Cup. The cabin temperatures inside these cars can get beyond 60 degrees Celsius, and these drivers in most cases don't use cool suits. Some of them don't have drink bottles and things like that. They just get themselves through. As Jeffrey Lee, he and Marchie Lee have started more races in the Cup than anybody else in the field, 59 apiece as of yesterday. This will be their 60th start in the 62 races so far in this championship over 5 seasons. But a lot of heat. He might be trying to keep the car cool. He might be looking for a little bit more aero because there's some dirty air behind those big wings. They're not just efficient to keep the car on the ground, they're also designed to make it a little bit more difficult for the car behind them, just by the way aerodynamics works. So Marchie might have a couple of different strategies up his sleeve, but I wonder whether he's not trying to keep cool in what are pretty oppressive conditions outside, the heat and the humidity here at Sepang.
Yeah, they are going through it in the cars with this heat. You can see when they go into these head-on shots, there's a massive heat haze behind them as they come around. That is the Genting curve as they come down into KLI8. There's Frankie Chen. He's having a really good drive, a solid 4th position. The main story so far is, can Marchie Lee get past Martin Rump here? It looks like Alex Young is controlling Alessio from the front. Alessio's 1.3 behind. Mitch Gilbert looks like he's satisfied with the first podium of his career in the Audi LMS Cup. Then you can see the 4th place to Frankie Chen. And the main story here is, can Marchie Lee get past Martin Rump? Martin Rump's really making it hard for Marchie Lee. He's got some really good racecraft, this Estonian, as they coming through the back of the track. There you can see the Chinese Frankie Chen. If you're in China, you can support him in Shanghai in September. That's the penultimate round, and we round everything up with a new circuit, Zhejiang, in October 2021. It's going to be really interesting to see that track in October.
Yeah, I like the look of the Zhejiang circuit because it's a lot of up and down, a lot of elevation changes, and I think there's also a pit entry or a pit exit under a tunnel, so it's going to really make things very interesting for teams that have seen a lot of these circuits. So of course, Suzuka we've not been to with the Cup. In fact, you'd know that better than I over many years. Of course, we do go to Japan, but Suzuka is a new one this year too for the Cup, and for a number of these drivers that love that circuit, very iconic in Japan. It'll be nice to go back there, of course, next month. But Alessio still hanging on to 2nd position. It's not a bad start to your championship when you finished with a 1st and a 2nd, assuming this is the way the result ends. You've taken 2 pole positions, so there's 2 additional championship points. He'll be very, very happy to start his season that way. And his focus, it's only one thing. You heard him say it on the grid: I want to win and I want this championship. And that's what his plan is. He said, if I don't win a championship, there's every chance my career may not go forward. I need this as a stepping stone. I need to be focused on it. I need to be fit. I need to be smart. I need to be ready. I need to be ready for what Alex Young is going to throw at me. But he too is under no illusions that the other young drivers in the field, one of them on screen, Mitch Gilbert, aren't going to be able to take the battle to him. Interestingly, talking to Mitch Gilbert yesterday, he said part of my success so far is being able to compare data as part of the Absolute Racing team to Alessio Piccarello, and he said, let me tell you, this guy is very good.
So they're coming on to the penultimate lap. They've got, I think, Alex Young will probably be coming down into turn 14, Sunway Lagoon, fairly soon. There's Mitch Gilbert, solid third place. He's got 5 more pushes to passes. I think Alessio, last time we saw the car, had 3, so he's got the advantage if he wants to push a little bit harder to get closer to the Belgian. Alex Young is just way out in front. He can probably close his eyes and drive the car home quite easily from here, with 2 laps to go as they come down this long back straight. There is Alex Young in the lead from Alessio. Mitch Gilbert, nothing's really changed so far as they come around this turn 15. They're going to start their penultimate lap fairly soon. Stefan Riquelme, the green car, the Castrol car, in 8th place. KOU was 9th, and it's been Akash and Andy Jeffrey, the amateur class car, in 11th place. So here's Alex Young. This is the penultimate lap. He's going to start. Away he goes, and the light's flashing, so he's used 1 more push to pass just to make sure he gets away from Alessio.
4 push to pass, as you say, for Alex Young, leading this field. This is a great recovery, and I guess this is part of experience. We call him a veteran, or in fact he was called in the Malaysian press during the week veteran. He wasn't sure he liked it. He's come up with an analogy about what veteran truly means, as he's now gone for push to pass to make sure he keeps that advantage to Alessio Picariello. But knowing that you had such a poor day yesterday, that off, a lot of pressure. He said too, I mean, we're talking about Marchie Lee, the veteran, under pressure as a team boss. Alex admitted at one stage to somebody yesterday that this is my home track. There's a lot of fans here, there's friends, there's family. It's probably a little bit too much chatter. Talking to Dindo Capello down in the lounge before the race, he said, I always would go to races as an experienced campaigner without friends and family and all that sort of thing. I needed to be focused on the job. My team became my family. I had to entrust on them everything with the race weekend. We had to work together. It had to be very intimate for 3 or 4 days. Then you go back to being in your normal life. But for Alex, this is home. He will have a lot of people here around him, and that may just be slightly putting him off his game. So he's focused today, he's come back, but he knows from experience that a bad day doesn't necessarily follow that you're going to have another one. It's a championship, it's a long way. You need to build points. You need to come back from a bad day and turn it into a good one. And no better way to turn it into a good one, Graham Harvey, than to take victory in the 2nd race of the season.
Yeah, and Alessio's only got 1 bullet left. As you can see, that solitary number 1 on the side of the car. So Alex looks like he, as long as he keeps on the black stuff, he's going to win this race as they come down this penultimate long back straight. There'll be 1 more lap to go, and you'll probably find that Alex Young's about a second and a half in front of Alessio. And you can see there you've got Frankie Chen and Martin Rumps trying to pull up to Frankie Chen as well. He's psyching Frankie out, flashing those lights to let him know that he's right there, but it's over the line, and Alex Young is now 1.6 seconds, so I wasn't too far away from the 1.5 prediction from Mitch Gilbert in 3rd, Frankie 4th, Martin Rumps in 5th. Marchie Lee's just fallen off the pace a little bit in 6th, then we're just waiting for Sean Tong's gone over. Stefan Riquelme, KOU, Akash Nandi and Jeffrey. They are your field as we have the final lap.
This is going to set up to be a championship very much like last year, the way it's looking, between the young man on screen, Alessio Picariello, and the other man on screen in the number 1 car, Alex Young. They had a great battle across the championship last year. Of course, now we've got some new players. Mitch Gilbert, he needed a good result after the disappointment of that technical issue yesterday. Frankie Cheng, he's right in this. He will be right in the championship race with 2 4th-place finishes. Of course, Martin Rump adds a 5th to his 2nd from yesterday. And Marchie Lee, okay, a couple of finishes just off the top 5, but he too will be in it. Sean Thong is in position 7 at the minute, and he will add to the 3rd place he got in yesterday's opening round. So good haul of points, but no one's really got away, apart from Alessio, of course. He's got a 2nd to go with his 1st and his 2 pole points, but the rest of the field are going to be closely grouped together, and it is only round 2 of a 10-round season, so still a long way to go.
Now, you saw there that Mitch Gilbert has 2 more pushes to passes. Is he going to catch Alessio? This is going to be a bit interesting. It looks like he's just too far behind with that camera shot, so it looks like Alessio is going to fill P2 as Alex Young comes through to Sunway Lagoon, and then he's just got about 1.5 kilometres between himself and the checker flag as they come up this long final back straight to turn 15, and it's going to be Alex Young. He led from start to finish. You managed to get past Alessio. Alessio had that extra 50 kgs. That was the telling factor of this race. So around the corner, Alex tiptoes his R8 LMS Cup car, and he comes through. He's going to take the checker flag. And Alex Young wins the Audi LMS Cup second race here at Sepang. Second is Alessio. Third is Mitch Gilbert. Across the line is Frankie Chen. Martin Rump in fifth. Marty Lee will be sixth. Sean Tongs had a really good ride to keep Stefan Rakelmi in 8th place with an extra 20 kgs. KOU is in a 9th. Akash Nandi will finish in 10th. And then we'll just wait for Jeffrey Lee to cross the line, and that'll be your 11 cars home and hose. So it's a really good ride, a drive by Alex Young. He needed to win because Alessio had 27 points after the first day, so he's just taken a little bit of, I think he's just taken about 7 points out of Alessio today. So it sets up nicely for the next rounds. As I said, the next one will be at Suzuka on June 10th to the 11th. We're in Korea, July the 15th, 16th. Shanghai in September the 9th and 10th. And the final round will be October the 20th and the 21st. So if you're fans of KOU, Team Audi Korea, make sure you get down to the southern part of Korea for that great former Formula 1 track. And they'll be racing on July the 15th and 16th. So come out and support your local hero, KOU, in the Korean round mid-July. But it's all about Malaysia, and Alex Young wins the second round here from the Belgium of Alessio Picarello. Mitch Gilbert, of course, I guess you could class him as sort of Malaysian after being born in KL, but he races under the Malaysian flag actually, so he's actually racing under Malaysia. So just come back into the warm down lap, and they'll be coming into pit lane, and I'm sure Alex Young will be absolutely delighted with his victory. There you can see Martin Rump had a really good drive. Martin, he had that excess weight, and he managed to fend off Marty all the way around the 13 laps of the Sepang International Circuit. There is Alessio. He's your series leader going on to Suzuka. But we've got 4 more weekends, and there's going to be a lot more high drama because Alex Young and Alessio will be absolutely going 100% maximum to win this title. And don't forget about Frankie Chen. Martin Rump, he has a good shout as well. As I say, the key to Martin is if he can actually get to the front of the grid. Well, if he can actually be P1, he normally wins. If he gets to the front of the grid, he has a great chance of closing out the race. So just coming back into Parc Fermé, so we're going to have Alex Young, Alessio and Mitch Gilbert. Here comes Alex. Obviously knows where to park the car. He's won here many times before. And just wait for his delighted reaction when he gets out of the car. Very happy. He's back in the hunt for the 4th title. That is an unprecedented event if that does happen. And the locals are here, very happy, good attendance. Okay, so the cars are in Parc Fermé. Let's find out what the panel thinks about race 2.
Well, thank you very much. That was a fantastic race. Lots of excitement there, and Sean will be joining me in just a second, running down from the commentary position. The drivers, will hear from them in just a few moments' time. But fantastic performance by Alex to bounce back from yesterday. Really sets up that title defence for this year. So we'll be taking a look at the highlights and the press conference and some of the interviews with the drivers, all to come in today's programme. But plenty more to come. So we'll just be throwing down to Sophie, who is joined by today's victor, Alex Young.
Alexio, congratulations for the first win here of the whole season. But it looks like that you're not giving up your title without a fight.
Yeah, you know, yesterday was a disaster, so I didn't drive very well, and I don't think we fully understand the new tires yet. Today was a bit better. The pace was a bit better as well. I didn't make any mistakes. No big ones, at least. But we can still improve. So, you know, if we win a race, and I know we can still improve, I guess that's good for the championship.
Thank you so much, and back to our boys upstairs.
Well, Sean, I mean, a great way to bounce back after that spin that Alex had yesterday. Finished 7th or 8th down in the starting positions, but straight back with a win. It's the perfect answer.
Well, they call him the Malaysian master, don't they? And I guess that's part of the reason. And experience. This is where it plays into your hands, to come back from a bad day and make it a good day. And that's going to make it harder for some of his young rivals too, because they haven't had that experience in a lot of cases too. He'll be able to use that. What tools does he have in his arsenal to combat these young guys? Well, that's one of them right there. Come back from a bad day and make it into a success.
Well, Alessio obviously had the 50 kilograms in the car. We can join him now. He's with Sophie to see how his race went.
Alessio still makes some energy from the race. You just take 50 kg extra weight from yesterday's win. How big a difference does that make?
Well, it was huge. You know, the car was completely different, but especially at the start, you know, you have no chance to have a good start because the straight is so long afterwards. And also I had issue with my launch control already at the formation lap. So yeah, the start was bad, but the team did such a great job all weekend long. I mean, I had such a good pace, even with 50 kilos. I think I have the fastest lap time in the race again. So yeah, it's mega, and it's really good points for the next round in Suzuka.
Very good race weekend for you here in Malaysia. Thank you so much, and back to your guys.
Well, he did have absolutely extraordinary pace with the extra weight, and that's something that we didn't really talk about before the race. But for the first few laps of today's race, he was right behind Alex, and we thought perhaps somehow he was going to be able to make a move, but he did fade slightly as the race went on, Sean.
Oh, he did a little bit. That's just part of the whole strategy of the way the race is played out. It's pushed it past. It's to make it interesting. It's not just a straight race. There are other elements that come into this to make it more interesting for people to follow through. So it was a great race, and it did have a number of elements. It may have looked relatively processional in the end. It did spread out a little bit, but there was still a lot of close battles.
Well, let's go back down to Sophie on the grid. She's with Mitch Gilbert.
Mitch, does this podium finish make up for some disappointment from yesterday?
Only just. I mean, yesterday was really disappointing for everybody. For us to not finish in Malaysia is quite important for us. Audi Racing is from Malaysia, all our sponsors from Malaysia, so it's not ideal. But yeah, look, today was good. I struggled a little bit to keep up with these guys, but to come back on the podium, I think we showed that maybe I'm one of the guys that's going to be fighting with these two for the title.
Thank you so much, and keep the pace. See you next stop, and back to your guys.
Thanks, Sophie. And Mitch, well, yesterday, Sean, you tried to claim him as an Australian, but he's definitely a local driver. He is Malaysian. He knows this circuit very, very well. And you think perhaps, how much did that play into his performance? He had that unfortunate issue with the car yesterday, but third today, very well done to him. Can he keep that going throughout the rest of the season here in the Cup?
Oh, of course he can. We saw him do that in the Blancpain GT Series Asia just a month ago here, where he won the race. Co-driver too, that time was Aditya Patel, a former Cup winner as well. But he is here representing OD Racing and doing a very good job. He finished first and third at that event here at Sepang, so we knew he had the pace. We expected him to be right in the mix. Didn't quite work out for him with that technical issue yesterday, but he bounced back very nicely, just as Alex Young did, and got himself a very nice group of points. But he's another of these young guys who've come out of open wheelers and been very, very quick in a GT3 car, and I expect he'll be in this championship the whole way through this year.
Well, let's take a quick look at the highlights from today's race. Of course, we know who the winner is. Let's just remind ourselves of some of those top moments from the race. And the start really today, of course, it's the standing start, whereas it's the rolling starts yesterday. And this is arguably where the race was won last, with Alex getting that extra jump against Alessio at the start, who had that extra weight in his car.
He did, and that is one of the positions where it will actually have an effect. Also a little bit on tyre wear, but we've seen drivers manage to combat that and do very well. Martin Rump comes to mind at Shanghai last year, where with the 50 kilos and the tyre issue, he still managed to go back-to-back. So you can manage to do it. We saw Alessio manage to set some of the fastest laps of the race during the early stages as he hung onto the tail of the #1 Audi R8 LMS Cup car of Alex Young. Good battle too with Marchie Lee and Martin Rump, which went right through to the final laps of this race, and Stefan Riquelme in the #11 Castrol Racing Team car. They're just getting a little bit of gravel on the run through the final corner.
That's right. I mean, they were, as you said, battling all the way through today's race. Marchie Lee might be a few years older than he was, but he certainly hasn't lost any of his competitive drive. One of the most competitive drivers on the grid, and you ask him, he's definitely keen to, always up for a fight, always throwing everything at the driver in front of him, and he did that today.
Well, 60 starts for Marchi Lee in the Audi Cup over the 5 and a bit seasons we've had so far, 10 victories. He's the second most successful driver in this series. A little bit of a wiggle there for Mitch Gilbert under brakes down at turn 4, and he really did a good job to hang on to a podium position.
Well, so Alessio did very, very well to stay with him. Sometimes we've seen drivers with the 50 kilograms drop further down the field, perhaps, but he did well to stay in seconds, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely, and that was one of the things that we were talking about during the course of this race. But Alex Young, really a very good answer to the dramas that he faced yesterday. And towards the end of the race there, he managed to eke out a bit more of a lead over Alessio Picariello in that MGT team by absolute operation run machine. And there it is, the number 1 car, and he's not the number 1 for no reason. That is victory number 22 in the Audi R8 LMS Cup in his 5+ seasons in this championship.
So Alessio, of course, will keep that championship lead after his performance yesterday in second place today, but Alex will have narrowed the gap in the standings. And you just get the feeling that this title race is going to go right down to the wire. We've had so many close races year after year after year, and we talked about how competitive this field is. And it's shaping up to be every bit as competitive this year. But we can now go down to the podium to see some of the trophies being awarded for today's race.
Ladies and gentlemen, the awarding ceremony in the category overall of the second round of 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup is now officially beginning. So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to welcome third place category overall is Mr. Mitch Gilbert from Audi Racing Team. So the second place category overall goes to Mr. Alessio Picariello from Team MGT by Absolute. So right now the first place goes to Mr. Alex Young from Team Audi I. So congratulations to all the winners. So right now please raise the national anthem of the winner.
Of course, the national anthem of Malaysia for the former Formula 1 driver and 3-time Audi R8 LMS Cup champion. Victory number 22 for Alex Young.
Well, Sean, we saw Alex there wiping the presumably sweat from his brow there, perhaps a tear for another win on his home track. But how much of a difference does the heat make here in Sepang? Always so hot and humid. It gets very, very warm in those cars.
Well, up to 60 degrees and beyond that, 60 degrees Celsius, so very, very hot behind the wheel. Cool suits are an option. Of course, drink bottles are an option, but fitness is the most important thing. And of course, a lot of these drivers, Marchi Lee, Frankie Cheng and Alex Young especially, know what the Asian climate's like. They're prepared for this. They've been racing their whole lives in this climate. So some of the Europeans get a little bit of a surprise. We saw Edo Mortara a few years back refuse in Taiwan to take a cool suit, and after he got out of the car in that first session, they almost had to pour him out. He was absolutely exhausted. So it is something that needs to be considered in conditions like this. They need to keep hydrated. They need to be very fit. And certainly the young guys that are coming into the field this year, more especially, are well aware of that, and they will use that to prepare for this season ahead.
That's right. Only, of course, 30-minute races, so relatively short, although Audi does race in the 12 hours of Sepang here. So we've seen some mammoth enduring racing where it's really, significant strategy. Part of the conditions, the weather here. But these young drivers certainly have to be fit. Arguably, they have to be fitter because of this than they do over in Europe.
Well, that's certainly very true. And you see guys like Alessio Picariello walking around with his fireproofs on. He's a very, very fit and powerful young man, and they need to be, because these cars can be very physical. And of course, a lot of them have come through their whole careers from karts to open wheelers, where you don't have luxuries like power steering and all those sorts of things that nice GT3 cars do. And there is Jeffrey Lee recovering from that unfortunate off and being bogged in the gravel yesterday. Mestindo Capello, three-time Le Mans champion, presents Jeffrey with the trophy. Jeffrey Lee, of course, a number of starts in this championship. Next to Marchi Lee, the most starts of anybody in this field, 60 starts apiece over the 5 and a bit seasons of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. And he looks a little exhausted, does Jeffrey? He's probably suffered a little in the heat.
Somebody get that man a drink. I'm sure he'll be getting a bottle of something in just a few moments' time. But yes, he'll be enjoying the chance to cool down.
And there you go, another accolade to the man from Belgium, Alessio Picariello. That will be the fastest lap award from Pirelli, a new innovation this season, and championship points lead. So it's been a very tidy start to the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup season for Alessio Picariello. Photographs time. All the supporters, sponsors, partners of the Cup. And this one, no doubt, will go down in fond memory now for Alex Young after that frustration of yesterday. So the champagne will be well used. Jeffrey's off, exit stage right. And nice to see these three guys. And Jeffrey alongside. Celebrate what was another fantastic round of the Audi R8 LMS Cup.
So certainly a chance for the drivers to go and strip down and cool off. But Sean, let's talk about some of the strategy that we saw employed throughout the race. And the push to pass innovation here, this return to the Cup, really played its part today because the cars were pretty tightly packed together, and it was a real strategic battle. Did the drivers use them all at the beginning to try and build a gap, or did they have to hold them in reserve for some of the later laps?
Well, they have that option, and talking to some of the drivers after race one yesterday with the return of push to pass, we didn't have it last year, but they said, I guess that the thing was they couldn't plan for that. But anyway, one thing you can plan for is Sophie. She's down on the podium with Jeffrey Lee, the AM Cup winner.
Jeffrey, what a weekend with up and downs here in Malaysia. So summarize your race weekend for us.
Well, for me, to be honest, I just have to finish the race. But as we all know, we had some bad luck in the first race. Second race, I was basically driving alone myself. So yeah, this is a, well, easy weekend for me. A nice weekend to enjoy the sun and enjoy all the old friends here.
Thank you so much and enjoy the weekend. Back to our panel.
Thanks very much, Sophie. Well, we were just talking about the push to pass and the strategic thinking that came into it. Martin Rump saying in yesterday's press conference that he was really having to spend a lot of mental energy focusing on when to use it and how many. He seemed to go through his slightly earlier than some of the other drivers. But I guess it just depends on where people are in what position in the race.
Well, the beautiful thing about this is it doesn't come in at a controlled time. I mean, it does by the driver, but each driver has their own way of using it. They don't know whether they're going to get caught up at the start, so why use it if you're locked in behind another driver? You might want to keep it for the end of the race because you're caught in a tight bunch and you're able to actually use it to get around somebody during the race. So you can't really plan for these things. If you're in front, maybe you can use it to defend from somebody coming from behind. But as the field starts to get into play, you don't know who's done what. So during the race, as Martin Rump said, you're doing these mental calculations based on what you can see on the car in front of you as to how many do they have left, how many do I have left, when should I use it, will they counter? We've got to take the advantages wherever we can.
And you can only do the best that you can see at that particular moment. We saw Alessio use two to try and build more of a gap in yesterday's race. And then the safety car came out, and the lead that he had built successfully immediately disappeared. And you thought, well, perhaps if he'd known, which of course he didn't, he could have kept them in reserve. But sometimes just nothing you can do about it. Luck does come into it.
Well, he was lucky that time because he managed to have a great advantage. I think probably car setup was the thing that helped him more yesterday. When we saw him get out of the car today, he said it didn't quite feel the same way. And that's a big part of it too, how the car is prepared. Conditions on circuit too change. Tyre pressures can predict whether you come on and you're quick to start or whether you're quick towards the end of the race. So these are all factors that come in, and you don't necessarily know what your rival's doing. And that's the great thing, because it becomes interesting. There are other variables that we can talk about and that are thrown into the race that can change the ultimate outcome.
Now, what we also one of the other things at the Cup, though, it's not new this year, but it's significant after the race is awarded, that the top three do get that weight ballast. And we saw that all the three drivers who had the weight today do drop down their positions to a certain extent. But we can look through some of the highlights again from the race. And you can see that the three that I'm mentioning, of course, Alessio, Martin and Sean Tong, all struggle slightly with that extra weight that they were carrying.
Well, from a standing start, that is going to be something that's more to move off the line. So it is going to take a little bit more time to get that rolling, and only fractions of seconds. You see in qualifying can be thousandths of a second. So that slight retardation with getting off the line can be all it needs to move forward in this field. But Alex Young took advantage of all that because he doesn't carry any additional weight penalty because he didn't finish on the podium. There's that move with Marchie Lee firing up to try and get up the inside of the Champion Racing Team entry of Martin Rump, but he was unable in the end to make that move stick, and he had to follow Martin around in this race. Tried very hard to muscle across into turn one at one stage. That was a great battle during this race, and the two of them were using push to pass almost at the same time. Got alongside Alessio Picariello down at turn one, but the outside at turn one isn't the place you really want to be to affect a move unless you can make the crossover, and he was unable to do that. So that left Alex Young very comfortable at the front of this field. See the 5 on the side? He had a number of push to pass still up his sleeve just in case he got any kind of assault from behind from those two young drivers behind him in the field. Teams watching on. They can't communicate with the drivers via radio, so they can't inform them of all the things that are going on or the push to passes. They do have a pit board that they will often put out, but they're not communicating directly with the drivers on track. Mid-race, it was a nice lead, comfortable lead there for Alex Young. And that's all he needed to do was stay in front. A win's a win. It could be by a thousandth of a second, but it's a victory. So he didn't need to race off into the distance and put himself under any pressure. He did everything he needed to do to stay ahead of Alessio. And that was a very welcome 22, win number 22 for Alex Young. Fist pump out the window as he crossed the line. He'd be very, very happy with that.
Yeah, it was a fantastic way to bounce back, as we said, from the disappointment of yesterday. Let's look through some of the other drivers. Frankie Chung, 4th place finish for him today. Pretty strong performance. We'll talk about him in just a second, but Dindo is back. Let's get the big man's thoughts on how everything worked out today. Dindo, thanks for joining us again. What did you make of today's race?
Actually, today was a good race, but not so many actions on track. And at the beginning, I was quite impressed about the speed of Alessio, because with 50 kilos, you know, it was not easy to keep that speed. And then in the end, they also set the quickest race lap, which is quite good with 50 extra kilos on the car. But from the other side, I think Alex show his, I would say, his experience using push to pass when he needed, and then you know, to get just a little gap, and then at the end of the second half of the race, he was just how do you say, take his pace without taking any risk, and he won from outside in an easy way, but I think was not so easy because he knew that the guy behind him was very, very fast.
Dindo, we talked earlier about how much the weight, the extra weight, makes a difference on the line, off the line, from the standing start. But as the race goes on, how much does it start to affect tyre wear and things like that?
for sure the second half of the race is the most critical point when you have extra weight in the car, and also starting, because making a standing start with the 50 extra kilos or any extra weight for sure is negative for the car, for the acceleration. And then, you know, with the extra kilos in the car, extra weight, you have to be really precise, because every time you make a little mistake and you get a little bit out of the line, you lose much more than what you lose normally with the standard weight. That's why it's so complicated, and you have to be really, really careful, because you have to push, but try to avoid any little mistake, otherwise you pay it really a lot in terms of lap time.
Dindo, we spoke yesterday about what advantage a senior driver or an experienced driver might have over some of the young guys, and we were talking during the coverage that perhaps one of the tools that Alex Yoong has in his arsenal is the ability to bounce back from what happened yesterday. Like, there was a pretty big knock, and sometimes some of the young drivers, you see them fail to finish a race, and then they maybe try too hard, they push too hard in the next race, they could have problems. Even mentally, it's a bit of a tough act, but for Alex, he actually used that, stopped himself, started again today. It's a new day, and he's come away with another victory.
Yes, you are right. Plus, talking with him, he said he didn't completely solve the braking point, the braking problem he had yesterday. Therefore, he has to drive in a, I would say, he could not attack as he would have liked. But that's his experience, because you know, the mistake from yesterday, actually mistake, if it was a braking problem, I would not call it a mistake. But the issue he had yesterday was still in the car, therefore he knew exactly how to behave and how to keep his position. He knew that he had an advantage in terms of weight, in terms of performance, and he just did what he needs to win the race. That's, I would call it, experience.
Dindo, just talk a little bit more generally about how you see the level of racing over in this part of the world. It was obviously quite an international field here in the Cup, with some Asian drivers as well as some Europeans as well. The tracks, no one has any issues with those. Formula One and everyone else races on these circuits. But what about some of the younger talents in particular coming through? Do you think that perhaps in the future we might see that a bit of a power shift away from Europe, or is Europe still going to remain too strong?
No, I think if we get the guest driver as benchmark, we can see that to be competitive here, you have really to have everything under control. You have to know the track, you have to know the car, and you have really to get some experience, even though you have a lot of experience in Europe or in other countries. But if you are coming here as a newcomer and you have no so much experience, you are really struggling to get the same speed of the best driver of the series. Therefore, it showed me that the level of the driver is very, very high here in Asia.
So for you now, what does the career post-racing look like? Do you miss it? Do you wish you had that opportunity to continue? I asked Alan McNish that last year. Would you like to get into something like the Cup and keep going? And he said, no, I'm happy with what I've done.
Yeah, I know that Alan, once he stopped racing, he never get again in a racing car. Since I stopped with Le Mans, I had the chance to do for 2 more years the Italian GT with the R8. But as Alan said, I always said mentally, I finished my career in Le Mans 2012. Then I still did some races, but as a professional driver, I think 2012 was my last year. And at the moment, I have my new challenge as an Audi dealer in Italy. Therefore, for me, it's a second part of my life. I didn't miss racing as driver. For sure, I always like to be here with you at the racetrack. I don't like to be at home in the weekend and thinking about my dealership, but I prefer to be at the racetrack following my former teammates or my friends who are still driving. But as a racing driver, I did not miss racing. For sure, is something which is part of my life, the biggest part of my life. But I think as every career, there is an end. For me, the end was a few years ago, and now I have to think about the second part of my life.
Well, Dindo, thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts. We really appreciate your time here, and everyone's appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Enjoyed listening to you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
So, Sean, just a few moments away from the press conference, we can get some of the thoughts in more detail from the drivers. Let's just go through some of the finishing positions. Alex, of course, on the podium at the top step with Alessio and Mitch Gilbert. Then we had Frankie Chung, Martin Rump, and Marchie Lee. So a lot of the usual suspects filling those top 6 spots.
I tell you, one of the people I was very impressed with is Frankie Chung. And we saw Frankie have a pretty tough year last year. He nearly won the championship the season before. In fact, 1 point. It went all the way down to the wire. He lost the championship by a single point to Alex Young. But he really performed today. Okay, he may not have made the podium, but 2 fourth-place finishes. We'll find out in the championship points when all has been settled from this weekend exactly where he is in this championship. And he'll be right there. So that's a good platform for him to move forward and really keep going in this championship.
And we were talking to him before the race, and he was saying, well, I'm not really looking towards the championship because of last year and the disappointment when he wasn't really on the pace as he was 2 years ago. He's just looking race to race. I guess, for him at this stage, that's the only the smart strategy.
Absolutely, and in fact, if you look at what we call the 3 veterans in the field, Alex Young, Frankie Chung and Marchie Lee, the most experienced competitors in this field, they really did perform quite well. And there's under a lot of pressure from some very serious competition. I mean, we're just talking about Stefan Riquelme. He didn't make the podium, and yet he is the reigning Le Mans champion in LMP2. As Dindo was just alluding to, some of these very professional drivers come through from Europe and they don't find it as easy as perhaps they might expect to when they come into these Asian championships.
That's right, and looking further down, we have Martin and Marchie in 5th and 6th, respectively. They really had quite a few battles throughout the race. I thought there might have been contact at one stage, and again, at the beginning of the race between the top 2, Alessio and Alex have had their battles. So it sounds like we are just getting ready for the press conference. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back next month in Suzuka, Japan, and we can now go and join Martin and all the top finishers. See you next time.
Okay, welcome everybody to the press conference of round 2 of the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup here at Sepang, Malaysia. Winner of round 2, congratulations to Alex Young of Team Audi R8 LMS Cup. Coming in second today after winning round 1 yesterday, congratulations Alessio Picariello of MG Team by Absolute. Albeit he had 50 kilo in his car, he also won the Pirelli Best Lap trophy. Well done, Alessio. And coming in third, his first podium for the season, Mitch Gilbert of Audi Racing Team. Congratulations. And the number 1 in the M+ category, congratulations for a good race, Jeffrey Lee. Very well done, of FAW VW Audi Racing Team. Oh, sorry. Team Audi Volkswagen Taiwan. Okay, let's go. Alex, you had it's always hard to run on your home turf because a lot of people are here, fans, pressure is on. And this year was the season starter, so you still have to find your setup. So yesterday it didn't work out for you for the podium, but today you bounced back great with a win. Talk us a little bit through your experience this weekend.
That's a very long answer, but I'll try and go for the short one. Very thrilled to take the win after yesterday. Like you said, got a lot of support here. So a lot of friends and family turned up, so it was very special. So it's nice to repay them with a win. Hey, Mum. Struggled a little bit yesterday, and I made a mistake, obviously. Today we made some more improvements in the car, so the car's a bit better. I knew I had to try and get Alessio off the start because he's going to be very fast, even with the 50 kilos. So once I'd done that, then it was just trying to settle down and get into a rhythm.
which was also a little bit tricky. The first few laps, it took me a bit longer than usual to settle down. So I think there's still some work to be done. We need to still understand how to get the most out of the new tires. And yeah, so all in all, I'm very grateful for the win.
Thanks, Alex. Before we give the word to Alessio, let me announce the overall standings after round 2. So leaving Malaysia and going to the next race weekend in Suzuka, Alessio Picariello leads the overall championship with 45 points. Alex Jung is second with 29, and Martin Rump third with 28. Alessio, you had a 50-kilo success ballast. Wasn't easy at the start, I guess. Still, great race for you.
Well, yeah, first of all, I need to thank my amazing team, Absolute Racing and MGT team, because they did such a great job all weekend long. They worked really hard. Ruben, my engineer, and all the mechanics down there, they were unbelievable. They gave me a great car, and yeah, even with 50 kilos, I could manage the fastest race lap. But like you said, I was expecting to struggle at the start, and it was the case. Alex got a mega start, and yeah, I was just struggling with 50 kilos. The way to turn 1 is pretty long, so yeah, but then actually I could keep up with him, put him a bit pressure in the beginning, and obviously at the end I was struggling a bit with the tires, but yeah, I think it's still good. The goal was to finish on podium, because we know here it's pretty hard with the success ballast, and yeah, P2 I think it's a great result for the rest of the season.
Thanks, Alessio. Mitch, first full season for you with the Cup. You did very well in testing, in qualifying. Yesterday you were in second position when you had a technical difficulty. But again, today you bounced back, your first podium. Let us know what you feel at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was... thanks. Yesterday was tough, because for us to be on the podium is really important, especially in Malaysia, because Audi Racing is from Malaysia, all the sponsors are from Malaysia. So for us, it was really disappointing. And yeah, I didn't really have much to say after the race yesterday, because running second and to break down with 2 laps to go is disappointing. But today, you know, I had to start third, and I'd never done a standing start really with the car, with the Cup car. So yeah, I mean, I had a good start, and I managed to stay third, but after that, the other 2 had a bit of an edge on me, which was annoying, to say the least. But to try and keep up with, at the beginning I could keep up with them, and then after that I just made a couple of mistakes and then dropped away. But I want to say thanks to Audi Racing, and then our service provider, Absolute Racing. They did a really good job to put us, first of all, to put us on the grid, and then to make sure that we're fighting the front. And I think that we've proved that maybe we're one of the cars that can fight with these 2, that even after last year they were the first and second by quite a margin. So I think we proved that we can be in the mix with them. So yeah, I'm pretty happy actually after today.
We are looking forward to this fight. Jeffrey Lee of Team Audi Volkswagen Taiwan, a Cup legend. Jeffrey, you're with us for the 6th year in a row. Congratulations for the podium, and talk us a little bit through your race, please.
Oh, well, basically today the race I just drive along myself. But anyway, I managed to just try to follow the front guys, the pro guys. Yeah, sometimes get closer, sometimes made a mistake, but yeah, just basically I just had a nice weekend. See some old friends here, so.
Were you able today to utilize the additional amount of push to pass that you have as an M+ driver?
Yeah, I managed to use the push pass at the start, so that was give me a little bit of kick to manage to go side by side into T1. But after that, it was basically just following them. Even I used the push to pass a few times, but I can manage to keep up, but to pass is still difficult.
Great. I would like to open the floor now for your questions. If you have any, please raise your arm. Please, Sean.
Mitch, one of the things you said across the weekend was you took advantage from your absolute teammate, the man sitting 2 seats across to your right. Do you think that played a lot into your performance here this weekend and to get you back onto the podium?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at Absolute Racing, we probably have a bit of an edge on Phoenix and on Alex, because the two of us are pushing each other along, and I think that we, you know, being first and second in quality, we're really pushing each other forwards, and we can kind of keep finding a 10th here, a 10th there, and I think that's where we're going to have an edge for the beginning, and maybe the others will start. I'm sure the others will start to catch up with Sean and Marchi at Phoenix. So I think, yeah, I've learned a lot of Alessio. I know he's quick. I've raced against him for a number of years, and as much as it's kind of annoying that he did have the edge on me this weekend, I know that working together, we can at least, I think, take the fight to Alex and then fight it out between Alessio and I, hopefully.
Yes. Alex, just quickly, you probably didn't see much of it during today's race, but yesterday you would have seen a bit more. The push-to-pass displays as a tool, could you use that, and how did that work? Was it an advantage or a disadvantage, do you think?
Oh, I think it's great, because when I was following Rump yesterday, I could see when he was using it. I could see the lights lighting up, so I was like, ooh, I can watch when he's using it and try and get him to use it a bit more. The view from the front's a bit tricky. I was looking in the mirror and I was trying to see if Alessio was using it, but couldn't quite see the blinking lights from the front. So maybe for the next race, he can move it a bit forward, so we can see it. That's assuming I'm in front, of course. But yeah, no, I think it's great.
Alessio, did you try to look forward to see when he's looking his push to pass and the number of push to passes he has left?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me it was easier to see as I was just behind. And yeah, I was watching how much push to pass he had left, and every time he was using, like he said, it was flashing. So I saw in the beginning he used pretty much. And I was striving to saving mine because I could see I could stay with him, and I knew at the end I would be more struggling with the weight and yeah, of course the tires. And but yeah, at the end, in the middle of the race, he didn't really use much, and he kept a lot for the end as well. So I couldn't make a big difference. But anyway, I knew pretty much from the beginning of the race that it would be tough to pass him if he was passing me at the start, just because with the weight it's even harder to brake late, and to make a move is really hard. So I'm pretty happy with the second place, and I'm happy that it's good that Alex won, so at least it's not too far the championship and we can have a good fight again.
There's still a few rounds to go. More questions? Nikki?
This is a question to Alex and Mitch, because both Malaysia. There'll be a lot of people watching you today in Malaysia, a lot of young kids inspired by you. Each of you, what advice would you give to them if they're looking at a motorsport career and want to be where you are
now? Don't do it. I can remember when he was a youngster coming up, and was very free with my advice, and yeah, you can do it, and look how that's bitten me back. No, it's yeah, no, I mean, motorsports is a growing field in the region. Yeah, it's a good industry to get into, and obviously it's my whole life, so I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching Alex when I was, I think, 8 or 9, and Alex was in F1 at that time. Sorry to say how old you are. I think actually I was even younger than that, to be honest. So I think it was 7 or 8, and I remember thinking, wow, if that guy can make it coming from the same place as me, we had the same kind of groundwork, and why can't I do it? I mean, obviously I didn't go as far as him, but
yes.
I think to be, you really just need to. I think the thing that people now forget is that you can have a career in motorsport, and there is a career to be had. So I think you just need to really believe that it's there. And a lot of people will tell you that it's not there, but it is there. If you really want it, you can find it.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Everybody happy? Okay. Then I would like to again mention thank you very much to Audi of Malaysia for the great support for the weekend. I would like to say thank you to all the media and our guests for attending the race weekend. It was a great season opener. We saw some great racing, and I'm already looking forward, as much as you, hopefully, to the next round in Suzuka in July. Cup will then go to Korea and then twice to China. So stay with us, follow our social media channels for almost daily updates on all the things that happen around the Cup, but also around what Audi does in motorsports in Asia, not only with the GT3, also the TCR, where we have the RS3 LMS TCR running in several competitions. Next week also there will be plenty of Audi competing in the opening race weekend of China GT. So catch up with us, and I hope to see all of you back again for the next race in Suzuka. And thanks a lot to the drivers. It was a great day. It was good to watch you racing, and congratulations again for the podiums today. Thank you very much, everybody.